So here I collected few questions which we haven't discussed, and it's a little bit different and difficult also in term of like someone saying which part we haven't touched, that is difficult. So I'm also considering same. Okay, fine. So what is library and resources in RAML? So anyone want to answer this question? Anyone has understanding what is library and what is resources? So in RAML and all, okay, let's continue. So I don't think anyone interested. So in RAML actually we are using many things, many component, but it's very difficult to explain those components. For example, if I say what is query parameter and URI parameter, everyone know what is query parameter, what is URI parameter, but it's very difficult to explain. Okay, so same way we have library and resources. Many people are using this, but it's difficult to explain. So first of all, library is a collection of reusable component in the form of traits and data type. Okay, so in library we can define traits and data type, and we can reuse in our RAML in multiple places. Same way, resource type is a collection of methods and its methods, parameter, and its component. Okay, so resource will contain any method, its parameter, and its component. Okay, now what syntax you will use to define query parameter, define library and resources? To define library, we use keyword usage, USES. Okay, and then you need to define your library. Same way, if you want to define resource type, then you need to use syntax resource type, and then you need to give some name, and then you need to define method and their parameters. Okay, this question is also very frequently asked question. Another question we have similar to this, query parameter, URI parameter. Anyone want to define this query parameter and URI parameter? Everyone using, whenever you are defining RAML, you are must using these two things. But if you need to explain it theoretically, anyone can explain this? So that is syntax. But what is this URI parameter? Yeah, so here whatever answer you have given, both of you know what is URI parameter, but you are unable to explain this. Okay, so both answer are correct, but it's not actual answer or what interviewer expecting here. So we have two things here, query parameter and URI parameter, by which we can pass input to our RAML or input to our API. Now what is difference between these two? URI parameter is unique identifier. If we want to retrieve some information from our API based on some unique parameter, unique identifier, then we use URI parameter. For example, I want to fetch student detail or employee detail based on their employee ID. So employee ID is unique identifier here. If you are retrieving information from API based on their unique identifier, then we pass those value inside URI parameter. And query parameter also is a part of input parameter only, where we pass filter condition. For example, I want employee detail having salary greater than 50,000 and less than 1 lakh. So here we are passing some filter condition. So if you want to pass some filter condition, then we use this query parameter. So this is very basic thing. Okay, now means theoretically how will you will explain this in front of interview, that part you need to know. Otherwise everyone using this on daily basis. Okay, is it clear what is query parameter, what is URI parameter, what is library, and what is resources? Means how to explain. Yeah, how to explain this part is clear to everyone? Okay, fine. Now tell me about type of exception strategy and rollback exception strategy. So yesterday someone told it's a very difficult question interviewer asking, but it's a very basic thing you are using whenever you are developing Mule API. You must need to use this exception strategy and rollback exception strategy. Otherwise your Mule application is not completed. And by default, your Mule application will create some exception strategy. Even if you will not create, by default it will create. Okay, so in MuleSoft we have three kind of exception strategy. One is default, another one is flow level, and next one is global. Okay, so in global exception strategy, we define all the error handling component inside one global error handler, and wherever we want to use in flow or private flow, we reference this error handling or exception strategy from there. We can refer this global exception strategy from there. Flow level exception strategy, like when we define error handling component within a flow, like in flow also we have error handler, and if we define error handling component there, then that is known as flow level exception strategy. And if we are not defining this flow level and global error handling, then by default it will go to default error handling, which is defined by Mule application itself. We cannot control on that, and by default it contain on error propagate with nothing. Like inside that on error propagate there will not be anything. So this behavior of default error handling will be similar to on error propagate component with no other component inside that. And what is rollback exception strategy? So this rollback exception strategy is like whenever you are getting some exception, okay, then how you will retry or you will roll back. Okay, so there will be some mechanism like retry. You can retry for some time. For example, you are failing somewhere, you are calling some external service, but you are failing when you are calling that external service, then you have to retry for 2-3 times before sending error message. Okay, so that is retry mechanism. One will be that retry mechanism. Another one will be you have to handle in such a way so automatically that, for example, you are failing to insert data in database. Okay, or you have like 2 or 3 database in your API and somewhere you are failing. So for example, you inserted customer data in database, then you inserted that customer data in JMS queue, and then you are trying to insert that data again in database. If due to any reason, if database insert will fail, third database insert will fail. So ideally what should happen? So whatever insert you did earlier, that should be rollback. Okay, so either you can do it through exception handling strategy, or you can select XCA transaction. Okay, so there are multiple way to handle this. If all the connector what we are using here support XCA transaction, then we can go with XCA transaction. Otherwise we have to write some rollback exception strategy by which we can revert the data we inserted in previous transaction. Since our processing is not completed, so we should revert data and we should retry again. So that is rollback exception strategy. Okay, tell me 3-4 important difference between Mule 3 and Mule 4. Okay, so in Mule 3 and Mule 4, the major difference is there, like for data weave expression. So in Mule 3 we have data weave 1.0, on Mule 4 we have 2.0. Then we have a difference in Maven. By default in Mule 4 we have Mavenized project, but in Mule 3 by default it's not Mavenized project, you need to do it manually. Okay, then whatever like payload we are like whatever message structure we have in Mule 3, that is different from Mule 4. So Mule 4 is event based, where each event will contain this message and payload, but in Mule 3 it will contain header and payload. Okay, So these all are like a very important difference. A part of this, there are small differences are there. Okay. So next question, can you tell me few difference between JWT policy and OAuth policy? This I think we discussed earlier, but let me tell you again. So first of all, how JWT token policy works. So in JWT token policy, we have one JWT token service provider. First, before making call to external or before making call to our API, first you will call this JWT token provider server. That server will give you JWT token. Using that token, you will call that API. And on API side, they will have public key provided by JWT token services provided by JWT token server. So they will validate that token with the help of that public key. Okay, but in case of OAuth, so like calling system, first they will make request to this OAuth server. OAuth server will return us one token to calling service. It will return token. Now calling service will take that token and will call the external service with whom we like this calling service we want to connect. So it will pass that token. Then that external service or target service will validate that token. So again they will make request to OAuth service provider. Okay, then OAuth service provider will validate that token and it will return success or failure, means it's a valid token or not. If it is valid token, then that target service will return response to calling system, and if it is not a valid token, then it will give unauthorized error message. So this is their mechanism how they work. Okay, so first thing, OAuth you have seen, this is a protocol, this is not a way to generate token, but this JWT token is a Java web token message format. Okay, it's a message format, but OAuth is a protocol to secure your API. Next thing, if you want to do like logout or session out, it's not possible in JWT token, since you are not calling JWT token service provider from target system or from target system. There only we will have public key, and using that public key we will validate that JWT token is valid or not. Okay, so once you will set some connection timeout or JWT token validation time, you will not able to invalidate that token until unless that time will not expire. But you can invalidate token generated by OAuth service provider, OAuth server. Okay, so there are some mechanism by which we can invalidate the token and OAuth token will expire. So if you want to do actual logout, so logout is possible only in case of OAuth service provider. We can't do logout in case of, or we can't invalidate or logout in case of this JWT token. Okay, so next is what is XCA transaction and what all connector support XCA transaction. XCA transaction is a way. Okay, first you need to understand what is transaction. So whenever we start our processing, our API start processing, it start one transaction. Okay, so there are two kind of transaction. One is XCA transaction, another one is non-XCA transaction. So in case of non-XCA transaction, it support one fetch commit, means whenever connector will do transaction, whenever one transaction will be completed, it will commit and that is done. You can't roll back after that. But in case of XA transaction, it's a two-phase commit. Okay, whatever transaction will be part of that particular main transaction, until unless all the transaction within the main transaction will not be completed, it will not do final commit. Okay, so first each transaction will commit their transaction, and then Once all the transaction will be committed, then it will do its final commit. So that's why it's known as two-phase commit. First commit is after, for example, we are writing data in database. After writing, we will do commit. Then we are writing in JMS queue. After commit, we will do, after writing in JMS queue, we will do commit. Okay, and once all the transaction will be completed, then it will do two-phase commit, means final commit it will do. Okay, and if any transaction will fail, for example, database commit is done, JMS commit is done, again we are writing in JMS. All are supporting global transaction or XA transaction. If last transaction will fail, all the previous transaction will roll back automatically. But this is not possible in non-XA transaction. So what all connectors support XA and non-XA transaction? File, FTP, SFTP, HTTP, SOAP service consumer, Salesforce, all these support non-XA transaction. It support one phase commit only. Once commit is done, you can't roll back. But database, JMS, VMQ, then this Amazon S3, then Azure database, all these connectors support XA transaction. So you can do rollback if any any transaction in their group chain will fail, then it will roll back. Okay, next, how to expose Mule API as a SOAP API and how to consume SOAP API from Mule API. So here we have SOAP service consumer connector. So if you want to consume any SOAP service, then you have to use this SOAP service consumer connector. Okay, and okay, 1 minute, how to consume? Oh yeah, so while for consuming you will use this SOAP service consumer connector. And if you want to expose your API as a SOAP API, then while creating your Mule API, instead of using YAML file, you have to use digital file. Then what it will do? It will expose your API as a SOAP service API, and to handle this, automatically it will create SOAP API kit router. Okay, in case of REST, it will create REST API kit router. In case of SOAP service, it will create SOAP API kit router. Okay, next, tell me difference between SOAP versus REST service. Okay, and structure difference between WSDL and YAML. Anyone want to answer this? This is not related to MuleSoft, it's any technology. So everywhere we have similar concept for SOAP, and if you are working in Java also, .NET, Web Methods, TIBCO, then everywhere we have same difference. No? Okay. So SOAP service. First of all, SOAP service follow standard protocol. Okay, SOAP is a protocol. Okay, and it follow some strict rule. If you are developing any SOAP API, you must need to follow some strict rule. Otherwise, you will not able to develop SOAP API. For example, you must need to create WSDL file. Okay. So here SOAP service is a protocol, and it follow a strict rule for developing API. But REST service is not a protocol, it's an architecture pattern. Okay, so REST service is architecture pattern, and it's not having any strict rule. We have API governance. We can follow those API governance, but it's not hard and fast rule you must need to follow. You can develop REST API without YAML file. You can develop REST API with YAML file. It's up to you how you want to create. If you want to retrieve information, you can use get method and you can use post method. There is no hard and fast rule you must need to use get method. You can use post method also. Technically it will work. It will work perfectly. But it has some governance you must need to follow, so it will be easy for everyone to understand. But there is no hard and fast rule. Second major difference is In SOAP service, it accepts only XML payload. Whenever you want to develop or we want to do any business logic and all, message formats must be in XML. If it is non-XML, then first you need to convert in XML with the help of XQuery and XSLT. Okay, with the help of what is that component? I forgot. Okay, I forgot component level, which component we use. That is forgot. Okay, fine, leave it. So we must need to convert from other messaging format to XML, then only we will able to do some processing on data. But in REST API, it support XML, JSON file, PDF, CSV, text file, multiple message format REST API support. So you don't need to convert in particular format every time. So due to that, like your processing time in REST API will be faster compared to SOAP API. Okay. So if you say throughput, then definitely REST API having better throughput compared to SOAP API. Now these all are advantage part of REST service. In SOAP service, we have one advantage, that is SOAP service has their own security framework, that is OWSM security framework. But REST API always rely on their on HTTP security. Both SOAP protocol and REST API both are based on HTTP protocol only, but as REST API completely depend on this HTTP protocol, means HTTP protocol security. It doesn't has its own security framework, but SOAP service has their own security framework, that is OWSM security framework. If anyone has worked on this web service, you must heard about this. Okay. Next we have what is SSL security and what will be step if you want to secure your API in two-way SSL. Okay, so SSL is secure socket layer. So here either you can secure your API using SSL, or external system what you are calling through Mule API, they can secure their application with the help of SSL certificate. So if only one place like either source or target will be secured by SSL, then that is known as one-way SSL. One of them will be secured using SSL. So that is one-way SSL. So here, if you are securing your API using SSL, then you must need to create public key and private key, and you need to configure your private key in your listener in HTTP listener, and you need to provide your public key to calling system. So whenever they will call your API, they will encrypt request with the help of that public key, and once you will receive that request, you will able to validate this is a valid request using your private key. So this is one-way SSL. In two-way SSL, what will happen? Calling system and target system both will be secured by SSL. So calling system will call target system using target system public key, and target system you need to configure calling system public key. Okay. So both will be configured by their private key, and they will exchange their public key to each other. So when source is calling to target, so source will use their public key, and on target side you need to configure source system public key. So this is known as two-way SSL. Okay, and when exactly we use this SSL? Whenever you are using HTTPS connector. Now what is log4j file and what all detail it contains, how the vulnerability cause damage and how it affect consumer. Okay, so log4j file, I hope everyone have heard about this log4j file. Recently it was like this log4j sorry, Yes, but not related to Maven. Actually, log4j file contains detail of your logging framework. Okay, in log4j file we define what kind of logging we will do. We will do info logging, we will do warning logging, we will do error logging. So that you need to define. Then where exactly your log file will be placed. So all those kind of detail we provide inside log4j file. Okay, and recently due to this Java means whatever Java library we are using for log4j file, due to that, like, there was some vulnerability that is recently faced, and almost entire IT was affected due to that. Okay, so everyone like applied some patch to remove that vulnerability. So it's like due to that vulnerability, like a hacker can hack your system and they can do some like activity which can damage your potential, like your company data and all. Okay, next, you are reading file from file system and there are 1000 record and records are there. You are using batch processing here. Here we have database as target system and each DB call takes 3 seconds. Okay, how you will develop or design your API to make it more efficient and how you will handle failed record. Okay, so first thing, here we are reading file from file system, thousands like 10,000 records are there and each DB call taking 3 seconds. So first thing we need to do, instead of calling DB one by one, what we can do, we can aggregate the result inside batch processing and we can do bulk insert in DB. Okay, so in database we have bulk insert operation, that operation we can use from database connector, and inside batch processing we have batch step and inside batch step we have aggregator. So inside aggregator, whatever process like record will be there, for example one batch contain 100 record. So once all the record will be processed, then it will go inside batch aggregator and you will have that accumulated result there. Using that accumulated result you can do bulk insert. So instead of, for example 100 records are there in a batch, so each record insert will take 3 seconds, database call take 3 seconds. So instead of 300 seconds you can do bulk insert which will take 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Okay, this is one way. Okay, now what they are saying, how you will develop your design your API to make it more efficient. So to make it more efficient, instead of calling database every time, we can do bulk insert. This part is done. Okay, now how you will handle failed record. For example, you have 10,000 record, out of this 100 record are incorrect data which is failing in database. So what you need to do, you need to define another batch step 2, and there you need to define how, like there you need to handle only failed record. So inside that batch step you can define, you can select one property which will where you can define what kind of record you want to process, success record or failed record. So you can define failed record. So all the failed record will go inside that batch step 2, and then you can do required handling. Maybe you can do retry, or you can store those failed record in database and you can send alert to admin team or support team so they can handle those data manually. Okay, so this error handling you can do. Next, what minimum vcore size you need to handle a file having size 100 MB. Okay, so minimum vcore size, I don't think there will be some any pattern, so that should come through your experience. You need to try how. So it depends on multiple things. So what will be frequency of those call? If this file is getting pulled very frequently, then you need more vcore. By default 0.1 vcore contain 500 MB heap size. So your size is 100 MB. So in that case 0.1 vcore will support this. But if that API consuming file very quickly, like frequency is very less, like we before processing this 100 MB, you already read like 5 or 10 5 of 1000 MB to 1000 MB. So in that case 0.1 vcode will not able to process. So in this case, like it should be based on scenario. We can't commit for anything like okay 0.1 vcode or 0.5 vcode can handle this. It depends on business scenario, how frequently it's reading file and how frequently it's processing that file. It's just read and write, then it will be faster. If it like meanwhile we are doing lots of processing, we have some asynchronous call, in that case file will be stored inside our heap size. Until unless that will not be processed, if we will read another file, our heap size will be consumed and we will get a heap dump memories, like heap dump memory error. Okay, so this like we can't commit for any number of vcode. It depends on like our business requirements. Your Mule API contains source connector as a file connector. What handling you will do if you are getting heap memory issue due to bigger payload size? So here we can do scaling. Okay, so mostly in this case we should do vertical scaling, where we are increasing size of vcode and heap memory. So instead of 0.1 we can use 1 vcode or 0.5 vcode. Okay, after 0.1 we have 0.2, then 0.5 only, I forgot. So in this way, like we can do vertical scaling, so it will increase your vcode and as well as your heap size. Okay, fine. So till this point, if anyone has any doubt, let me know, then we will move for next. Everyone is here or not? Oh, okay. So everything is clear, or like you are just listening story? Okay, hope everyone clear with this what I explained. So let's move to next question. What is throttling in Mule? Tell me some business scenario where we should use throttling and what advantage you will get after throttling. Okay, so throttling is nothing but like whenever we are calling external system and we are getting somewhat static response. Static response means till next 10 minutes I will get same response. For example, I am calling price API. Okay, so which will give price of any this item. So price of item will not change very frequently. It will change once in a day or like once in a month. Okay, since you purchase some item, you purchase some stock, like you have 1000 stock, 10,000 stock. Until unless that stock will not end, your price will be still same. Okay, so if you are calling some database from where you are getting item price, and that price will not change very frequently, so in that case what you can do, instead of calling that external system again and again, what you can do, you can store that information in somewhere in our cache, and from next time onward for same request we will not call that external system again, we will get response from cache. Okay, so this process is known as throttling. So they are saying what some business scenario where we are using this throttling. So business scenario will be like whenever we are fetching JWT token. So that JWT token will be valid for 1 hour. So if next time same customer is doing logging and same customer is trying to do some activity, we will not generate that token again and again. We will not call this JWT token server again and again. So for next 1 hour we will use same token and we can perform our activity. So this is one use case. Another use case, you are calling some external system and you are getting some static response. In that case also you can use this throttling. Okay, so what is difference between object store v1 and object store v2, and what does persistent property do in object store? So like in MuleSoft we have two kind of object store v1 and v2. So object store v1 always take space inside your v code or inside your worker. Okay, it will be created inside your worker, and if you are doing clustering and all, then this worker will not be like this v code, not v code and not worker, this object store will not be shared within this clustered application. So clustered means you deployed your application, same application on two workers. So both are doing same thing. So if you will use object store v1, then one object store will be created in cluster 1, another object store will be created in cluster 2, and these two object store v1 and v2 object store v1 will not be shared from one resource to another resource. Okay, means one worker to another worker. In object store v2, that will be created outside of our worker. So even if we will have clustering, we can access same object store from both the clustered worker. Okay, so in this case we can use same v code for cluster environment. So that is the main difference. And persistent means if you will select this option whenever you are creating object store, and if you will select this option, then what it will do, even if you will redeploy your application or your application will crash, that cache data, whatever cache data you have inside object store, that will not be deleted, that will be still there in case of object store v2, since it's created outside of your worker. Even if your worker crashed, your worker is redeployed, object store data will be there. Okay, next what is VPC, VPN and DLB? Which component will be responsible for domain name mapping? Okay, so VPC means, okay, first you understand this part. In MuleSoft we have Cloud Hub deployment model, where means what MuleSoft did, they purchased one big space in AWS cloud, means Amazon cloud. They purchased very big space, and there they have hosted this Cloud Hub infrastructure, and whatever worker they have created, those workers are there and those are shared resources, like they are using shared resource. Now if I am customer, I want to buy some v code, like I want to take license of 3 v code, or you are another buyer, you want to take license of another 3 v code. So what they will do, in their connection pool, in their AWS pool, whatever worker is there, so they will take 3 v code and they will give us, and they will take another 3 v code, they will give to another person. So there is no separation in space and all, that is shared resource, and all these v codes are there using that shared resource. If you want more security, so you want to what you can do, you can host your own server, or you can create your bare metal server and then you can host your Mule runtime there. But if you are using Cloud Hub, you can't do that, you have to take that shared resource only. In that case, if you want more security, then you can take this license of this VPC. Okay, so what it will do, it will create one virtual private cloud for you. It will not be actual private cloud, since Amazon has taken very big space, that is shared resource, that is shared private cloud. If you want more security, then you can take license of that VPC and it will give you virtual private cloud. So there will be more security compared to that open, like shared space. So that is VPC. Okay, and if you are using this VPC, okay, then you can use load balancer also. That is like load balancer, I think that is not dependent on VPC. But if you are using dedicated load balancer, then there must be VPC configuration there. Okay, now what is load balancer? First we will understand load balancer. Okay, so load balancer in MuleSoft, by default we have shared load balancer. Okay, so whenever request will come, that will come through shared load balancer, and all clients, all MuleSoft client will use that shared load balancer. So for everyone, request will come through same load balancer. Okay, if you want more security and if you want more high availability, then you can again take a license of load balancer. So what it will do, in that case, that load balancer will be DLB. Yes, that is dedicated load balancer. Okay, so in that case, whatever request will come for your organization, that will come through that dedicated load balancer. So you will get high availability plus high security also. You are not going to use shared space or shared load balancer. Okay, so that is load balancer. We have two kind of load balancers, shared and dedicated one. Now if you are using shared load balancer and you are using HTTP listener, then it must be configured with 8081 port. Okay, so for shared load balancer, HTTP connector, HTTP listener should be exposed by 8081, and HTTPS should be exposed, must be exposed by 8091. So 8081 for, okay, sorry, I did one mistake. Shared load balancer, HTTP listener will use 8081, HTTPS listener will use 8082. And if you are using dedicated load balancer, HTTP listener will use 8091 and HTTPS will use 8092. Okay, this you need to remember this, what load balancer for what protocol, what will be your port, and this is fixed only, you can't change. Okay, and VPN, like we are creating virtual private network. Okay, VPN, I think everyone familiar with this in networking. So you can create virtual private network with the help of VPN. For example, I am in another place and I can use some other country VPN also. Okay, so that should be done through networking team, and this kind of facility is also available in Cloud Hub deployment model. You can take license and you can use. Okay, then okay, consider that you don't have API manager component. If you want to secure our API, how we can secure without API manager? If you want to secure your API, okay, so first thing, like if you don't have API manager, means you don't have management plane. Okay, in that case, what you can do, you can take any third party gateway. Okay, and there you can apply policy and security. That is one option. So all the on-premise one using same concept, they use like APG gateway is there, then Kong gateway is there. So there are multiple gateway available on internet. So there you can apply policy and security. This is one possible option. Second, in Mule API also you can use basic authentication. So we have one basic Spring component, basic authentication Spring component, by which you can apply basic authentication policy. Okay, that is another way you can do it. Very rarely people, no, everywhere this basic authentication Spring component you can use in Cloud Hub also and on-premise also. Okay, next we create payload and variable before for loop and parallel for loop. Okay, what will be the behavior of payload and variable after for loop and parallel? Okay, so it's saying yes. Basic authentication, I didn't get your question. Can you tell me again? No, it's not mandatory things. You should secure your API so everyone use some security policy. You can use basic authentication, you can use client ID enforcement, you can use JWT token, you can use OAuth. It's up to you what policy you can afford and you can use. Okay, next. We create payload and variable before, okay, for loop 1. This part even I need to check. So in case of for loop, payload and variable both will be as it is. Let me quickly check this. This part actually I am getting confused. So in case of for loop, payload and variable before for loop and after for loop, payload will be same but variable will change. Whatever variable you will set inside for loop, that will be there. And in case of parallel for each, variable will be same and payload will change. Let me quickly test this and then we can conclude. Okay, so let me create one array. So where is set payload? One, two, three, four, 5. Now for each. So here I will take payload as a input. Okay, so here I will set variable also. Test where. and value I will take 1. So here inside this I will change payload also, and I will change variable also. Here payload I will set as a I, and variable as a test, where value I will change from 2, small v. Okay, and let me run this. So ideally in case of for loop, variable should be same, payload will be same, variable will change. Since payload, okay, how I will come to know what is changing and what is not? So I need to add logger here. So in this log I will log payload. In this log I will log var dot test var, and here I will log end. Okay, so we have some payload and variable now. Payload is 1 2 3 4 5 and variable is 1. So after this for loop, okay, so first we will see payload. So this payload should be same. If you see log, So payload is still same, what 1 2 3 4 5. Since here we are changing payload to 1 1 1, but still it's a 1 2 3 4 5, and this variable will be changed. So variable will be 2. Whatever you will set inside this, that will be your variable. So this is the behavior when you are using for each. Now let's see with parallel for each. So it will be completely revert of this. Payload will be changed and variable will be as it is, what we have here. So let me complete this first. Our next scheduler will start. Let me stop this, and meanwhile parallel for each. Process is started. Okay, so this payload, you can see we are getting high, like we are getting all the combined payload. Okay, so payload got changed and variable will be same as it is at the starting. So starting variable was 1, so it should be 1. Okay, so this is the behavior. Okay, next. Variable. Okay, ideally as per my understanding it should be yes, but I will ask you to double check by yourself. Okay, this things like comes when we are doing actual things, so at that time only we need to check, but as per my understanding it should be same, means whatever you will update in batch step 1 you will get updated value in batch step 2, but still check and let me know also in group, you can inform so everyone will come to know. By mistakenly sensitive information committed on our file in Git, want to revert that file from central repository, how you will. So for revert, actually in Git we have some command, you can revert your commit from there. This is very basic question. I have a requirement to access private network data from my cloud application. How I can access that private network data from my cloud application? Okay, I have SAP is in our private network and my mule application is cloud. Okay. So if you want to access any private network data from cloud network, then you need to configure this SSL thing again. Okay, so generally SSL configuration is required there, but this part also again I need to check. Most probably this SSL configuration is required there if you want to access something from private network. Suppose I am sending one JSON request in the Postman, that is in array. Each consists of object and each object consists of property like 1, first name, last name 3, age. So I want only this property. If I send fourth and fifth one, then it should be accept my API. Just I want to restrict the number of API, how they can restrict. What is this question? Suppose I am sending one JSON request in Postman, that is in array. Each consists of object and each object consists of property like 1, first name 2, last name 3. Okay, first is first name, last name, and then age. I want only these properties. If I send fourth and fifth property of one fifth or fourth and fifth property, then it should be accept. It shouldn't be accepted my API. Okay. Okay, got it. For this we have one component in MuleSoft. Yes, recently I have discussion with someone. Okay, so generally what happen in API, like even if you will pass some extra value, it will accept your extra value, and then it will not give you any kind of error. Okay, so here we have one Spring component again, which will restrict extra components. So I think let me quickly check. Recently I had discussion about this property with one of my friend. So let me quickly ask about this property. Okay, strict validation. Okay, meanwhile I will get response. So we have some way in MuleSoft we can handle this. I will let you know soon. Or I can give you recorded video also for this. Okay, fine. Next we have expressed API having rate limiting policy and can handle 100 requests in the minute, and related system API having SLA and call external API maximum 75. Okay, so from experience API we can get maximum 100 since we have rate limiting of 100, but external system call when we are doing, they have SLA of 75. In that case, in external system we should use this spike control, since spike control supports some queuing also. You can do some queuing there. means we can queue that extra 25 record. We have exposed API. Okay, this is done. There are two insert statement. One insert is successful completed, second is failed for whatever record. Second insert failed, I want to roll back. Okay, so this one we already discussed, so we need to do XCA transaction here. If both are insert statement, means we are inserting in database, so database support XCA transaction, so we should use XCA property there, so it will roll back to automatically. Okay, fine, then for today we'll leave at this place only. This question I will discuss in tomorrow session, and someone shared Deloitte question also, that will also we will discuss in next session. Okay, fine then, thanks everyone, let's connect in next session.